And good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Super excited that you're joining me today. Happy Tuesday. It is the last Tuesday of March. That means the first quarter of 2022 is just about over. But that's okay because remember, there are 4 quarters in this year. And if you didn't get what you needed to get done in the first quarter, you got a second quarter. And then you know what? After that, we're going to have halftime. So you still got some time to get your stuff together. Thank you for being a part of today's show. I am always excited to see you guys in the room, and I'm super excited about today's show and about the big interview. I'm going to be talking with a longtime friend and somebody that I just have a tremendous amount of respect for because of the work that he's doing in and around Houston, but really around the world. So he's going to be joining us shortly, and we're going to visit with him for a bit. I'm going to save some of the highlights so that he can share them with us. But hey, you know what we do here. I like for my audience, you, the Chalk Talk tribe and family, to be the most educated audience anywhere. So I think it's important to talk about all the kinds of stuff that's happening. And this guest this week that I'm having, I can't believe he's never been on Chalk Talk before. But anyway, he is not just my pastor and a friend, but he is a leader. He's an author. He's a pastor. He's got a PhD now. He's a real estate developer. He's really an outside the box kind of thinker. And when I saw him on Sunday, I knew that it was time for you guys to make sure that you, the Chalk Talk audience, know him and know all the great work that he is doing. Welcome for the very first time to Chalk Talk, Pastor Rudy. Good morning, Pastor Rudy.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great. You sound great. Thank you. I know you've got a busy day, so thank you for making some time for the Chalk Talk people.
It's good to be with you. Matter of fact, we are way past due.
Yeah, we're way past due, so we'll start here today. But listen, when you, I'm going to jump right into it because I want to make sure that the audience gets to spend as much time with you today before you have to go to your next space. You've always thought that ministry was about more than the four walls of a church. That's not anything that's new. But clearly the pandemic has even broadened the sense that things have to be done differently. Before we just talk about some of the work, and I have a couple of slides I'm going to show from the impact study from the Bread of Life, what has been the biggest difference that you've seen post-pandemic about ministry and church and just people moving forward?
Kim. First of all, it's really good to see you, and as we have moved into a different era of churchdom, I should call it. The one thing I really predicted as a result of some findings in my dissertation as I was finishing up my doctorate, I realized that there was a generation that had not completely signed on to church as a way of life. Millennial culture did not make the same leap, the gradual leap that the generation right before them had made. That was the Gen X, the Generation X. Millennial culture paused, and now Gen Z, the group born after 2000, have completely not shown up in the four walls of the church. So really the warning sign was given when Gen X parents stopped bringing their children to church. The warning sign sound. Now we're past a crisis. We are now at a generational gap or a generational divide in churches that no one is still speaking about. What most pastors are doing right now is kind of placating the inevitable future by saying, "Well, I do have some people here," but if you really dig down into the data and look at the demographic mix of people who are there, then you're going to find you have mostly folk over 40 with a sprinkling of 30 somethings and an occasional 20 something and very few teenagers. So there are a couple of places in Houston and around the country with long-term youth leaders who have really embedded themselves in in the community beyond the church, and those youth leaders are identified as mentors and surrogate parents. So their gatherings are a little different from many churches that aren't really showing up with the numbers in the under 40 demographic.
Now, Pastor Rudy, just from the beginning days of St. John's, it was different, right? You served a homeless community. We were very, very active during the AIDS, and we still are, but during the AIDS pandemic, have always stepped into places where many other people would, not just other church people, but people in general. And so now that we're post-pandemic, and if we even are, I think we probably just didn't realize we've always been in a pandemic, but this particular crisis, all the work that St. John's has done in conjunction with Bread of Life. Can you just talk about that relationship, how you've partnered, how that's evolved over the years?
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it at the beginning of in your opening comments. I've never really seen church as a building centric experience. I've always seen the worship experience as a celebration that follows service to the community in the week before. So when we think about how my views with church kind of differ from the norm, then we really see where as a matter of fact, Kim, you've been with me a long time, and you need to put a plug on that for me. You've been with me a long time, and the one thing you've seen here over the years, I've only preached one time a month.
Yeah.
For the last 30 years, one time a month. And now it's been maybe a couple of months because I've never seen the leadership model for me as being the front of the room sort of model. So really for me, the middle of the room has always been my model. Bring that to service to the community. When I think about the agencies that we've developed, founded and developed over the years, starting with the Bread of Life in 1992, started serving one hot meal in the sanctuary to the amazement of most of the church world. You serving food to homeless people in the sanctuary? And the answer is yes. Yes. All right. But from there to serving 500 hot meals a day, 7 days a week, to ultimately building infrastructure around service to marginalized and disenfranchised people. From there, we moved to developing housing for people who were without a place to live, the unhoused. New term, the unhoused, and right, politically correct term, not homeless, but unhoused. And from there, we ultimately moved into where we are today, addressing food insecurity, and in a very tangible way, um, uh, addressing the social determinants of good health. Now, when we think about how health is, um, uh, how our health evolves, then we ultimately see that there are some other factors other than just being able to go to the doctor.
Right.
Nutrition, transportation, housing, employment. You look at all of the factors that ultimately contribute mental health to contribute to our physical well-being. What we're doing now, Kim, is providing care coordination for people who would fall through the cracks ordinarily, which means, in many ways, we are helping to keep people from becoming unhoused, and in other ways, we're helping people to avoid malnutrition in the process of just everyday life. So when I think about all of the missional activities that we're involved in, we're now looking at how we can be intentionally holistic in the way we care to the community around us. So yeah.
So You released the impact study on the bread of life in 2021. I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to pull up just a couple of the slides um, that show it. So here's a summary of what happened in 2021. Right. So it's serving people. It's all the growth. I mean, you have got to be. The bread of life has had its challenges because, as we used to say, the unhoused have not always been the kind of sexy nonprofit that people want to support. But to be on the other side, if you will, to still be standing one for 30 years deserves us a tremendous amount of encouragement and congratulations, and especially for the people who benefit. When you see what the work is doing, do you ever take a minute and go, wow, not that it's about you, but it's working?
Yeah, we have been, and I'm gonna use this term, like really blessed. Um, you know, um, the one thing I've learned along the way, Kim, is um, relationships are everything, and how we manage our relationships can make a difference in terms of how we impact the lives, not only our own lives, but the lives of others. Just like our friendship over the years, we have learned from each other, and and along the way, we have had mutual benefit as a result of our friendship. Well, as it relates to how this impact evolved for the bread of life and for Houston, it's kind of evolved as a result of friendships. That 1.96 million, we literally gave in cash to our neighbors after the freeze last year. The freeze that really devastated many people who were on the economic margins, came as a result of a relationship with Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter. That 27,000, the 27,000 families that received 5 million in product
Yeah.
came as a result of a friendship with a guy named Tim Meddy, who runs an organization that is Procter and Gamble's sort of social enterprise. They give away $200 million in product a year globally. Right now, they're in Ukraine, on the ground,
Mm.
giving product to the people who are impacted there without resources. And now the crisis in Ukraine are basic resources. You think about all of these icons here on the summary, and all of those literally connect to a person or persons who thought enough of our work to introduce us to to friends of theirs, or thought enough of our work to share their own resources with us, for us to share with the community.
So this is great to see it. I think the icons make it really visual for people. And I want to talk about what the plan is moving forward. You said something at church on Sunday, and you talked about it even before the pandemic. You had this vision of wanting to create a space for young people who aged out of foster care, and particularly young men. But like, what happens to you when you age out of foster care? And I actually have some friends who've aged out, and I always thought, what a tremendous group that needs to be served. Moving forward, talk about our vision today.
So 1,000 young people age out of foster care in Texas every year. Now, what that really means is, for the most part, all of the funding that might have followed them and supported their lives up until the time they were 18, all of that funding stops unless that young person decides to enroll in college and continue to pursue a college education. Well, you and I know, and for those who are watching today, know that's very presumptuous to assume that a person who had, in many cases, hadn't been emotionally supported, uh, um, intellectually supported, relationally supported, could be ready to engage the world as an adult. So several years ago when we first started talking about this, and Kim has been around y'all, so she's heard me talking about this for several years now. That we want to do something to impact the prison pipeline, and that pipeline is literally supplied by by undereducated young people who don't really grasp reading by the third grade,
Hmm.
and it's supplied by, in many cases, uh, by some of these thousand young people who are aging out of foster care every year without additional support to come alongside of their lives and help them to the next step. So what we're going to do, and what we already have begun, we started with a partnership with Cisco Networking Systems, the University of St. Thomas, and the Bread of Life on last week. We've been working on this initiative for three years. It just launched last week, where Cisco is training young people who've aged out of foster care who have an interest in IT and in technology at the University of St. Thomas's campus as college students without college tuition. I mean, it's
Wow.
a beautiful thing. When they finish this, and it's a relatively short term training initiative, when they finish this training initiative, they'll test for a certification and they'll make as much as 100,000 a year. It's a beautiful program. I'm thinking about becoming not with Cisco and networking systems. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful program. But we launched that, so that's one initiative that'll support this housing component. So the
Hmm.
goal is to provide housing for these young adults here on the campus. We're using the building that Beyonce and Kelly built in 19. Ready for this? 19 started in 1998.
Yeah.
When on their first hit song "No No No," when that song went like platinum, they made a major donation. We built a gym. That gym is now evolving into the Nose Rolling House. It'll be a 31 unit, sort of fully self-sustaining apartment complex building for this demographic who are aging. And then we're going to have other training initiatives that we're going to bring alongside here in the building as well. Last year, Kim, I don't know if you know this, but the Bread of Life purchased the church campus
Yeah.
from St. John's for $4 million. That eliminated the church's debt, that gave the nonprofit a solid asset for the future. And imagine this: how many organizations of color uh, own real estate in central business districts in the United States? We do.
So the real estate is a huge piece, and you said something also on Sunday. If you're just tuning in, I'm talking to Pastor Rudy. I figure everybody got to know him, right, all around the world. But
I've been at it.
he's been at this for a minute.
55 years old now.
But you look good, Pastor Rudy. You look good. So you talked about this for years too, doing some work on the sanctuary. Our sanctuary has never been fancy because you were like, it's about what we put into the community and not into the people and not the building. But now you're talking about how do we make this building work for the community the other days when we're not here in church. Can you talk about that a little
Yeah.
bit?
Well, it's eyebrow raising, but this is a great building
Yeah.
that was opened in 1917. Um, you know, the church world was different in 1917. It's different in 2022. What we're doing right now is we're leaving the bones of the building just like it is. It's going to feel just like it does right now on Sunday morning. But the mechanics of the building are getting ready to change to accommodate a live sound stage here on the platform. The building is going to become Sanctuary Live. It's going to be a music venue, a performance venue, um, that'll function Monday to Saturday, and Sunday we'll reserve the use of it for church services and worship. But Monday through Saturday, we're gonna, it'll be a room like the Hikes Theater on
Mm-hmm.
19th Street. It'll be a room like the Foundation Room at the House of Blues, and it'll seat about 500, 600 people in a very intimate setting. The ticket price is going to be a little higher. We're working with booking agents right now to start lining up talent, and restrooms will be inside the sanctuary, so you won't have to leave the building to relieve yourself. And it'll be here's the controversial part. There will be a bar in the building.
Man, church folk are never going to deal with you, Pastor Rudy.
Tony,
You just keep raising the bar,
it's
right?
already sent me to hell 30 times. So one more time. But yeah, what we're gonna allow beer wine in the building, and I as a music venue, I think we can do it. They do it at Jones Hall. Uh, you can't take it to your seat, but you can in the connecting facilities, you can, and the hobby center and great venues around the city, and nobody raises an eyebrow, and all of those facilities are self-sustaining, and that's the goal, really, Kim, is to make this a self-sustaining initiative that will be here for years to come, providing service to the community.
Pastor Rudy, what are you most excited about? I know you talked about this venue space, and because as you talk about the work of church is beyond just Sunday, right? It's so much about what happens Monday through Saturday, and Sunday we kind of celebrate it. But what are you most excited about the work that's happened and what you see moving forward?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, so I'm approaching twilight, in my full time um, sort of presence in kind of day to day church ministry. Um, what I'm really excited about is the prospect of some younger people embracing this as call and vocation, and furthering the work of Jesus in unconventional ways for the benefit of our community. And that's what I think I've done over the last 30 years. I've been all but conventional, um, controversial most of the time, based on how we um love and receive people from every walk of life. And my real dream is that we can continue that radical mission of love and acceptance into the future. That's what makes me excited.
You know, Rudy, for people who don't know, you were one of those anti-church people for your in your formative years, right? You didn't do church, and you really didn't do pastors. So we have to thank Pastor Juanita for a lot of that. But can you just talk about when you look at like now where you are, if you ever imagined that this would be the path for you, and if you're glad to be here, because I know there were times that you weren't really sure that you wanted to be here.
Yeah, you know, so 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 Jesus saved my life, and church gave me one,
Mm.
um, and and I'm grateful. My life, Kim, could have been so different without an opportunity to one know um, that life matters, and that love can be real, um, and I think I'm probably the least likely guy to have ever gone this way in terms of a ministry profession, based on where I was before. But I wouldn't take anything for this journey. And if I could look back and have an opportunity to change anything, I wouldn't change anything. All of it has been worth it.
Well, and all of it has brought you to where you are today, right? And it's giving you, you talked about the relationships, the ability to have these relationships, and the ability to have the vision of how to do church differently, not to be different, but to be inclusive and to make it broad, right? To make it work. Because now people all around the world can be touched by what we do, what you're and your team are leading right there on the corners of Crawford and Gray in really downtown Houston. On some real estate that you own, right?
We own. Matter of fact, we got a lot of it. We're building right now our fourth housing development, $32 million project that'll house 90 previously unhoused people in a first class manner, and that's right next door to the church campus here. When we think about how real estate ownership for communities really makes a difference. We are grateful that the land that project is on. We definitely have it for another 100 years. So yeah, it's gonna be okay.
So Rudy, anything you? I've had a few people say they want to know more about the program. Of course, we can send them to. I'll post it on all my platforms, the Bread of Life website. But what do you want people to do who want to be connected to the work, especially this new program, this new project with these foster care kids?
Two things. One, Bread of Life Inc. Reach out to me. I'm Rudy Rasmus at breadoflifeinc.org, and let me know. If you are interested in participating in any way, send me a direct message. You can send me one on Instagram, through the website, just however you normally communicate. But know that I'm grateful for the love that this community has shown us over the years. We have raised in excess of $100 million for these good causes over the last 30 years, and we're grateful. I was laughing with a friend yesterday. And I said, and to think of this, we've got 30 years of scandal-free ministry, man.
That's something to celebrate, right?
Something to celebrate. So yeah, I just would love the community to matter of fact, we have two distributions per month now, first Saturday and third Saturday. Pick one, come out and volunteer. The volunteer link is on the website. We've got a Dr. Monique Williams as our volunteer coordinator, the director of community impact, and we can get you really connected in many ways across the campus. We really can.
Well, Pastor Rudy, I said I would get you out and so that you could get to your next spot. This way you can come back when I ask you. I know you've got to run. Thank you so much for not just being here today, but for just being here for the community, for all, disaster. People know St. John's because we are disaster relief space. And so keep up the great work. And I appreciate you, man. I love you, my friend.
I love you. And I wanted to tell you, I've signed on as the executive director. And that's what I want to do for the next 5 years, from 65 to 70. I believe we can leverage all of these wonderful friendships that we have around the world to make sure that this work is solid for the years to come. Kim, I love you. I appreciate your friendship over the years too. We have gone through, over the years, and I'm grateful that you still love me and forgive me often. All right.
And on that note, we'll go. No. Hey, I'll see you on Sunday. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Pastor Rudy.
See you.
All right. That was Pastor Rudy Rasmus, longtime friend. He's not only my pastor, but just I wanted to talk to him. We do more than sports here. And so the work that's being done, I think is important. I think it's necessary, and it's great work. And so I always say that sports is a microcosm of society. So the reason that I really like sports is because it really happens everywhere else. And so what is happening on the corners of St. John's, Crawford, and Gray is just really community building. And isn't that what teams do all the time, right? They build community. I know that many of you have reached out to me over the past week because you wanted to talk about a few things. I'm going to let you hear from, I told you if you saw any of the promos, I'm going to let you hear from some of the Rockets. I have some thoughts about that young team as they wind down this season. But I know y'all want to talk about Desean Watson and his press conference, right? I know that that's on your minds because you guys have been reaching out to me and telling me. So let me share something about what it is I think. There was something leaked, a story yesterday. I say leaked because it was video of a deposition. And I think that we can expect that moving forward, right? Because the plaintiff's attorney, that's how he rolls. And so Tony Busby, I think, is far more interested in whatever it is he's doing than really what's best for his clients. That's just my own Kim Davis thought. So people asked me on Friday, did Desean win the press conference? Let me say this to you. Desean Watson showed up in the press conference last Friday. Listen, he hadn't spoken to the media really since January last year, right? After the last game of the season when he talked to us. And a lot has happened. He decided he didn't want to play for the Houston Texans anymore. He had this barrage of civil lawsuits. There were some criminal complaints that he just recently overcame, if you will, that were not moved forward. They were no billed, and now he's in a new city, and so he's meeting media and having a conversation for the first time. So y'all know how I feel about media training. Everybody needs it, and not just because it's what I do. It doesn't have to be me, but you've got to have some help to navigate those spaces when having difficult conversations is not what you do on the regular. And so it was interesting for me to see people who've seen Desean communicate for 4 years here as a Houston Texan the same way that he communicated last week. Was he a bit tentative? Absolutely, as well he should have been. But just ripping him to shreds. Were there some missed opportunities on what he could have said? The one thing I would say publicly and to his team was when asked if there are any regrets, the one he could have said was, you know what, I regret not being able to lead Houston to a championship, right? He obviously can't talk about the cases. So the fact that people are angry because he got this new contract, I don't really get that, right? He didn't put a knife to the Browns and make him give him a contract. He just got a heck of a deal. He's got a heck of a deal. Look, whatever you think of David Mulligetta, his agent, he's a really beast of a negotiator, clearly, right? So that's what I think about that. And moving forward, he will have to do two things. He will have to move differently. There's no doubt about it. He will, whenever he gets on the field, and we don't know when that's going to be yet, he will have to win, because winning cures a whole lot of things, most things. And then he will, he'll have to navigate those conversations differently moving forward. Other than that, it's time for people in Houston to move on about it, right? Because he's not your quarterback anymore. He's never going to be your quarterback, so I don't think he will. And look to see what this Houston Texans team is going to do moving forward. Some of you asked me what I thought about the trade. I did a show in one of the shows in Atlanta that I did last week. They said, man, Houston got so much. So much is relative. Those 3 ones and the fourth and the fifth, or the third and the fourth, whatever that was, what are those ones going to be later? If he does with the Browns what I think he can do in year 2 and year 3, I think there's a real chance that he'll definitely be suspended. I expect this year he could be suspended for the entire year. I don't know. We don't know yet what Roger Goodell and the league is going to do. But I think in year 2 and 3 that team could be pretty competitive, and those ones will be late. I would have liked to have seen them gotten at least a 2, but listen, it is what it is. Trade's over. If you're a Texans fan, all you can do is wait and see what Nick Caserio and his team does in this upcoming draft, and if they do anything in terms of free agency, because they are a ways away from being really good. Those of you who have been reaching out saying, well, Kim, Cincinnati won 4 games and then they went to the Super Bowl. they also had Joe Burrow. And I don't know how good Davis Mills can be. I don't think he's got Joe Burrow upside. We'll see, right? I'm just a we'll see on the Texans. I don't expect them to be very good this year. It's great that they have Lovie Smith instead of Josh McCown, who, of course, has the same amount of NFL coaching experience as I do. So that's my thoughts about what's happening with the Desean Watson and situation and the Houston Texans. Two entities that are separate now. There's no reason to really talk about them in the same breath. There's the Houston Texans and there's Desean Watson, and he is now with the Cleveland Browns. I will tell you that I'm really excited about baseball getting started, right? We are about 3 weeks away from the Astros home opener. They open on the road, I believe, on the 7th or so that week, but they will open at home on April the 18th. So I'm excited that baseball is back and to see what the young Pena could do. Since we were last together, the city, we talked about the fact that Carlos Correa is no longer a Houston Astro, and there was conversations about whether or not, did the Astros not call him back, or, he took a 3-year deal with Minnesota with an option after each year. I can't really blame Jim Crane for not wanting to go through negotiations every single year with that opt-out deal. So hopefully the farm system is what they think they've built, that the Pena kid, young man, I should call him, can be on the field who they think he can be. He won't be Carlos in the clubhouse because Carlos was just really, really special. But, Altuve says the kid can be a star, so we'll see. I'm excited about that and the fact that Dusty's leading this team and to see what they have. And as I told you last week, I'm over the whole Verlander thing. I'm glad he's back in the family. All right, so then there's the Houston Rockets. Listen, many of you look at the record and go, oh my gosh, right? Awful. Like the team is just garbage. Well, what I would tell you is I don't think they're anything different than what we expected they would be, right? This Houston Rockets team is young. I don't think most people realize how young they are. So here's where they are in terms of record. The Rockets are 20-56, and Orlando is 20-56. Detroit is 20-55. So they're vying for the worst spot record in the NBA. Of course, they'll be in the lottery as they were last year. They'll get another high draft pick, and then of course Rafael Stone's got some he's got some other picks still that he has from the James Harden trade, and we'll see what they do with free agency. Last night they lost to the San Antonio Spurs in a game that was felt kind of playoff-ish, and I say that not that this team is anywhere near playoffs, but the final score was 123-120, and it was a fun game to watch. They were pretty awful. The Rockets were in the first half. The biggest lead was the Spurs led by 16 at one point. And if you watch the games and not just the highlights and not just the box scores, you kind of have to be excited about what this team could be in the future, or at least I think you can, right? I think that there's some things to be excited about. Last night, Jalen Green had 30 points. Kevin Porter Jr. had 26. And Josh Christopher, who I really like, had 20 points off the bench. Alperen Şengün started. Christian Wood's a little banged up. He had 12 points and 12 rebounds, 7 assists. Listen, they only turned the ball over 5 times, right? That's been one of the things that they've really been working on. And so as you look at, there's what, 8 games left for them this season or so, maybe 9 games left before the end of the season, and their season, of course, will be over. The fact that these guys are still playing so hard and putting it all on the line, like they've really been doing most of the season. I mean, they are competitors, and I think they're going to be good. Here's Coach Silas after last night's game when we talked to him in the press conference.
I see growth in this group. It seems like every day. Even when we lose, I feel like there are moments or areas that we grow. So yeah, they're a team who is right there trying to make the playoffs, and we were right there toe to toe with them and played hard and played through adversity and gave up 48 points in the paint in the first half, but only gave up 24 in the second half. So yeah, it shows some character from our group and some fight, especially with our young group of guys that we had out there looking out. I was telling the referee we had 4 20-year-olds and a 21-year-old out there at one point, and he just shook his head and laughed.
That was Coach Silas after the game last night. If you watched the game, there was a shot at the end where Kenyon Martin Jr. Had a great shot, right? He shot a 3. The ball went in the basket, hit the rim, bounced out, went back in the basket, and came out again. Like, I don't know how much better of a shot you can get than that, right? That would have tied the game and sent them to overtime, but they fought. It was a fun game to watch, and I don't believe in moral victories, but it is about growth. I don't think anyone thought this team was going to be in postseason or do a whole lot in terms of wins and losses this year. Like, the record, it was not going to be great. He said it. They had 4 20-year-olds and 1 21-year-old, and it may sound like, well, what's the big deal? That you started 5 players. Well, last night they didn't. They started Desean Tate, and Garrison Matthews. But at one point, people that are really in the mix on this team, Josh Christopher, Alpy, JP, Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., they're young. And listen, Jalen Green's got an awkward shot. He's super athletic. He can jump out of the gym. He works really, really hard. I don't know what his upside is going to be. I kind of go back and forth about what it might be, but time will tell and we will see. I like Josh Christopher. He is one of my favorite players on the team. I mean, I like all of them. They are competitive. They work hard, and they don't quit. I mean, they don't back down from a challenge, and those are things that you really can't coach. I've covered some teams, and I wish they had some of that level of competitiveness and fight and stick-to-itness that these young players have. So I'm excited about the future. Here is Kevin Porter Jr. After last night's game.
Just see what we got, really. Especially with the youth that we have. I'm 21. JG's 20, Josh 20, Alpy's 20. Everyone's young, so we're just seeing what this dynamic can be with the young guys and me leading it. And as for the first game, I feel like we showed our competitive, our efforts on offense and defense as a unit, not just individually. There's a lot of times where baby boy or my brother Desean, where he heads-eated and went right by me, and I trusted my guys to help me out, and they'll come up on a low man, and I'll go weak side and get them. And we was just having each other's back out there today, and moving forward, that's a great trait to have as a team.
And last but definitely not least, Josh Christopher. And the question really was asked of KPJ was, what do you guys want to see happen like the rest of the season? Like, what's the goal? And they all talk about ending on a high note, right? Really seeing what you have. Here is Josh Christopher after last night's game.
Straight to the basket.
Yeah, I just gotta maybe manipulate my defender somehow, look and see if I have teammates on my left and right, just making good basketball plays.
Just thinking highlighted the fact that tonight and a few of the games prior to this, we started to see some more minutes with you, Jalen, and KPJ all sharing the floor together. How do you feel about your ability to play off of those guys and for them to be able to play off of you as well?
It's something that we're gonna have to do. A guy like me, I'm two-way, so when those guys are on the court, I can be more focused on playing defense. They're gonna be shooting most of the balls. I'll get mine in for sure, just because the ball energy finds good basketball players. So rebounding, crashing. So I had a good crash in crunch time today. So finding ways to do that, and really just defense being that that Swiss Army knife I can be.
That was Josh Christopher. And good morning to everybody who has chimed in and made comments. I didn't really call them up when I was talking to Pastor Rudy. I was really trying to make sure I monitored the time. Big on time. And so if you say you've got 30 minutes, I'm going to make sure I get you out in 28 or 29 so that you'll come back when I ask you. That's really important to me. So thank you for that, Roy. Glad that you enjoyed it and that you're enjoying the show. Hope that you will come back again each week. We're here every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Across all the platforms, and then you can also watch it. Make sure that you share this show today with your audience on whichever platform you're viewing it. That's how we grow, and that's how we make sure that more people become a part of the Chalk Talk tribe, and I appreciate you in advance for that. A couple other things. I would be remiss if I did not give a shout out to Judge Katanji Brown Jackson. I mean, she is brilliantly qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. She exercised incredible restraint last week when she was, I don't even want to say questioned and interviewed, when she was talked down to and disrespected by the low-life senators like a Ted Cruz. And listen, y'all know, you know about me and Ted Cruz. So looks like it's time for me to send him another piece of correspondence. And perhaps I'll run into him at another restaurant and get a chance to tell him some things in person, respectfully, of course. But that was just flat out unacceptable. And what I say is that, really, probably any black woman in the country could relate to that. Whether you're a Supreme Court justice, you perhaps work in the cafeteria, you are a journalist, you do anything, right, where you have to interact with other people that you are oftentimes more qualified for, more prepared for, and that then you have to deal with that kind of foolishness. This is why we do what, everybody? This is why we vote. Those old curmudgeony white men who are ancient and antiques, not the valuable kind. It's time for some of them to go. And I know that there are people around the country who tune in, and while I don't tell you who you should vote for, because as a journalist, that's not what I should do, I will say, make sure you vote, and the only way you can vote is to be registered. So make sure that you're registered. We've got a special election coming up if you're in the Houston area for state rep. I think the number is 147. It's the seat that Garnett Coleman has resigned from. If you're in that district, make sure that you look and find out about the dates and that you vote. And then there's also a runoff from the primary that's going to be coming up a little bit later. And then this fall is the big election. They're all big elections, right? Everyone is a big election. So I'm encouraging you to vote. I'm encouraging you to first be registered to vote. And vote your conscience. Vote what's going to be good for you and your family and your community. The only way that you can really know is to be educated, right? So start paying attention. Let people hear from you. If you don't like the things you saw from the senators or people in Congress, listen, write them a letter, send them an email. It does matter. Ted Cruz doesn't respond, but I do get these really nice form letters from John Cornyn. So that's it. Oh, and listen, I have an update about my concern about the census lady who I felt like was stalking me. I did get an official letter from the census letting me know that someone would reach out because I had been selected through some kind of random way to do an additional survey. So anyway, I will now call the woman and see if I can do this interview over the phone or she can send me an email. But I really was concerned because she was showing up at my house and leaving notes on my door, and it felt very stalkerish, and she reminded me of Kathy Bates. I'm just saying. So I wanted to give you an update on that. I do have a little bit of clarification with the whole census thing. So perhaps if you get a letter from the census about being selected randomly to or scientifically is the word they use, to be a part of an extended survey, I want to make sure that I do my part to make sure that as many people that are counted, especially people that look like me, because I know this past census was just, anyway, the last dude wasn't trying to really have everybody counted. So I want to do my part, but I don't want any shenanigans, and I was really concerned about this random woman coming to my house. So that's my census update. I digress. Make sure you're registered, pay attention, be educated. The other thing is make sure you're vaccinated, right? Things are a lot better. The pandemic isn't over. They're shutting things down in Asia. I have a friend who works on a rig, and they shut his rig down because the pandemic is raging in some parts of the country. So listen, let's try to keep moving in a positive direction, in this great trajectory. And we do that by being vaccinated. If you've not been vaccinated, I encourage you to do so. And if you have been vaccinated, get the booster. And I believe that today we will know, if it hasn't already happened, whether the FDA is going to approve an additional booster shot for people 50 and over, with any kind of, recommended for any kind of people with immune issues, if you will, right? If you will. So yeah, Charles, I did. Actually, the letter with the Census Bureau, they mentioned her name. And so as a person that I should hear from, and gave me her phone number to contact. So it matched up. All of her credentials and the stuff that she was showing up with, and, it looked legitimate, but I'd never heard of that 2 years later, the census was doing another survey. And why can't I just do it via email? Why do I need to give you an hour of my time? And absolutely not. You would not come into my home. So anyway, I was like, yeah, this sounds kind of crazy. So anyway, yeah, but thanks for that. I did check. I did the letter from the Bureau's office matched up with her name and her credentials and all that kind of stuff. So Rosemary Mullins is apparently legitimate and is not Kathy Bates. So I will get with her when I have a moment, because I do run a business and I don't really have an hour for just, a whole bunch of extra stuff. But I want to do my civic duty to make sure that we are counted, the demographic as a demographic, and to help in whatever I can as it relates to the census. All right, we are just about out of time. As usual, thank you guys for being a part of Chalk Talk. A special thanks to Pastor Rudy. As you can imagine, it's super busy. He had an appointment already for this morning. So I appreciate him being here with us today. I wanted to share the work, let him talk about it. Nobody can really quite explain his vision and journey like him. So I will drop it after the show in the chat, but go to breadoflifeinc.org. And he talked about partnerships and friendships. He and I have been friends for a long time. He has been friends with Beyonce and her family for years, and with Kelly, and they've been big supporters of the work, right? Always have been big supporters, and so many others, as he mentioned, the head of Twitter, Cisco. It is about relationships. So these things that you want to do as a community, I just think it's also good to mention as a business model of some things that maybe, that maybe churches can do in terms of partnerships, where you can still do the work and expand your ministry, whatever it is that you decide that is. So listen, hey everybody, stay safe. Let your senators hear from you. If you had some thoughts about the way they handled Judge Katanji Brown Jackson, I've got to get my letter in today's. My best friend Zena always laughs and says she actually thought Ted Cruz was sending the woman to my house because of how much contact I have with Ted Cruz, or at least his office. So clearly it's not from Ted Cruz, but listen, they need to know who we are. They need to know that we're paying attention, and we need to let them know that, hey, by the way, you do still work for us. And even though we may not be pleased with the work they're doing, don't sit back and just take it. Send a letter, send an email, send a phone call. Those things are logged and recorded in terms of a record, not necessarily recorded in terms of audio recording, but it is really, really important. All right. So I encourage you to do that, and take it easy if you happen to be in the Houston area. There's been a lot of junk in the air for all of you who suffer with allergies, pollen and all that kind of great stuff. And that's all I got for today. So listen, thank you so much. I'll see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, follow me on all my social platforms. I'll be Rockets game tomorrow night, Rockets later in the week. I'll be doing some Astros stuff later in the week. I'll let you hear from Dusty. I'll be posting some clips of Dusty Baker. Y'all know how I feel about Dusty Baker. And then we'll start getting into what this Texans team might do with their draft. Who knows, right? Who knows? Thanks for checking in. Hey, good morning, my sister Sylvia. All right, have a great week, everybody. I'll see you next time. Remember, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. Make it a great week.